Hitler will go to the Reichstag and get past the Enabling Act, and the Enabling Act allows Hitler to rule by decree. In other words, he can create laws without going through the political process, without getting approval by the parliament, by the Reichstag. And so that is what begins. The Enabling Act gives him the ability to rule by decree. And so what is he going to rule by? What is he going to do with that? He's going to pass all sorts of laws that allow him to consolidate power in himself, that outlaw opposition to him and the Nazis, and that create his vision of a more pure Aryan nation. Okay, so Hitler's come to power, so what does he do? Now he's got the power to rule by decree, so what types of things is he going to put in place? Well, first of all, he's going to try to centralize power in himself and in the central government in Berlin. And so he's going to abolish old states in Germany, the sort of regional states, and he's going to give more power to the central government. So this in America would be like if the president said he could rule by decree without Congress interfering, and then the president said he'll now control California directly, or take away the powers that California has, or take away the powers that Montana or Washington or Nevada have, and instead have those in Washington, D.C. So he begins to centralize power in Berlin. In order to make sure this happens, he establishes the Gestapo, the secret police force, and the Gestapo is going to be, it's still remembered as a ruthless secret police force that will try to find opposition to him. Hitler obviously outlaws other political parties. So not only are the communists banned, but within a couple of years, all opposing political parties, except for the Nazis, are banned. So there will not be any free and fair elections. There's not going to be elections. There is, when the president Hindenburg dies in August of 1934, there's not another election to choose the new president. Hitler becomes the next president. He's chancellor and president of Germany. And so the position basically dies out. Hitler, remember, can rule by decree, so he decides exactly what he wants to see happen. So he begins to centralize power into himself. Of course, one of the things that Hitler does is the racist laws that he puts in place, the anti-Semitic laws. He, for example, begins to prosecute or push out of major positions Jewish people. So Jews are driven out of politics, out of jobs, out of the different professions. Jewish doctors or professors are harassed, and many flee, including, of course, Albert Einstein. The Nuremberg laws are put in place, which, of course, prevent Jews from being citizens. They take away their citizenship rights. So imagine if that happened to a group of people in America who have been citizens, who are part of this country, and all of a sudden that group, their citizenship is taken away. And the Nazis, of course, have on file all these records. All these records are from synagogues and churches, about baptism and other things that they can use to trace whether people's backgrounds. Other laws that are put in place, marriage between Jews and non-Jews is outlawed. And then, of course, by 1938, we have Kristallnacht, which is a giant pogrom, right, against Jews, right? Jewish businesses are destroyed, and Jews are attacked. Their homes are attacked. Jewish people are killed. So it's this giant, violent orgy, and we want to make sure that we understand that at that point, this really becomes violent after 1938, and so it's as we get into World War II, 1939, we'll see the Holocaust beginning, concentration camps being constructed, and Jews being moved initially to ghettos within cities, and then of course, moved to those concentration and extermination camps. And so that's mostly happening during World War II. It's not happening in the 1930s until after Kristallnacht. So what other things is Hitler doing with his ability to, issue decrees? Well, he's beginning to coordinate society under the Nazi regime. So he's outlawed other political parties, but he's going to try to get all of the, society to work cohesively together. So you can't have labor unions striking against, going on strike because they want higher wages, because then you're not producing things. So he ends, or he restricts labor unions, he ends strikes, and he forms a new labor union that replaces the old ones called the German Labor Front, and this will be controlled by the Nazis, right? So the Nazis will now be the only labor union. All workers will be represented in the German Labor Front. In terms of industry, Hitler starts to look at industry, and he's not going to take away private property. This is the important difference between communism and fascism, and Nazism is a type of fascism, is that private property remains owned by individuals, but the government's going to have all sorts of controls over industry, what things are produced, obviously labor relations between owners and workers. And so Hitler increases controls over industry to allow him to rearm Germany. And so this we'll talk about next, is the major rearmament program that he begins. Also, of course, Hitler coordinates society in terms of what we call civil society, those private organizations that exist. Hitler begins to end them and create Nazi organizations that people are forced to join. And so these Nazi organizations include, of course, the Nazi Youth, which allows all those things that children do to happen in the context of the Nazi Party. Nazi indoctrination will happen while these kids are playing soccer or doing other youthful activities. And of course, the independence of churches is reined in as well. Churches are a part of civil society. All sorts of restrictions will be placed on churches. The ability of church leaders to speak out against the government will be dramatically curtailed. The Nazis' secret police will be investigating, different church leaders. And so all of civil society will be under the close watch of the Nazi regime, and many of these things will, the government will directly control them, like with the Hitler Youth. And of course, there's a giant propaganda effort, right, led by Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels is Hitler's propaganda minister, and he will be, making all sorts of movies and other things. Other propaganda images that will be up everywhere that will depict Hitler as this great leader. Of course, Hitler will create his own private security guard force known as the SS, and he will have his assistant Heinrich Himmler, very close advisor and confidant of Hitler, will be in charge of the SS. Now the SA, you remember, the stormtroopers, the brown shirts. This was a large organization of hundreds of thousands of men. Hitler begins to view them as a potential threat on his control over the government. And so Hitler purges the leadership of the SA, the stormtroopers. And so in 1934, on June 30th of 1934, we have the Night of Long Knives, so the Night of Long Knives in English is when the leadership of the SA, 80 people, are executed by the Nazis, and included in this is the leader of the SA, Ernst Röhm. And so Hitler does those things that we saw Stalin do, for example, to consolidate power. He doesn't purge to the scale that Stalin does by any means, but he is consolidating power not just over the state, but also within his movement, to remove potential adversaries within the Nazi movement so that he can have complete control.